No matter what the world may do, trust in Him day and night. He will be your guiding light. Jesus will, I know He'll see you through. No matter what the world may do, trust in Him day and night. He will be your guiding light. When you have trouble on every hand, I know the Lord will understand. Fall on your knees and He will be there, and the Lord will help you. He'll answer your prayer. Jesus will see you through. No matter what the world may do, trust in Him every day and night. He will be your guiding light. People will try to turn you around when they believe you are heavenly bound. But don't get discouraged. Just keep the faith, and the Lord will help you to win this race. I know that Jesus will see you through. No matter what the world may do, just trust in Him day and night. He will be your guiding light. He will be your guiding light. He will be your guiding light. Grace, how sweet the sound that train. Oh, wretch like me, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Today, we're going to talk about making hard decisions. Making hard decisions. Every hard decision that we have to make we will not always be able to go to the Bible and find a chapter and a verse that will make that decision directly for us. Here's an example. There is not a chapter and verse in the Bible that tell churches when it is safe to reopen our churches with this COVID-19. There's no chapter and verse in the Bible that tell us that. Many times, all that we have before us are the facts that we have gathered and the option that those facts give us. But we will not always be able to go to the Bible and find a chapter and verse as we have to make decisions. It's not going to happen every time, not directly to our problems. And this will be seen in our text. And I'm going to call your attention to 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 through 5. And I'm going to read in your hearing, and I am reading from the King James Open Bible. And there were 4 lepers, men, at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, "Why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, and let us fall unto the hosts of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die." And they arose up in the twilight about dusk dark to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And here they made a hard decision. And this is our subject for today, making hard decisions. And here is a situation involved in our text. The city of Samaria is under siege, under lockdown by the Syrian army. Syrian plan is to starve Samaritan into surrendering. No one is able to go out and bring food into the city. Now, with that in mind, I want you to meet some people. Sitting in his house in Samaria is Elijah, the prophet of God. On his way to Elijah's house to put him to death is King Jehoram. He is the king of Israel, and he believes that they are under siege all because of Elijah. Now, walking in front of the king is his captain, who will take off Elijah's head at the commandment of the king. There's another group I want you to meet. Outside of the city walls are the main character of our story. 4 lepers who are facing starvation. There they are outside of the city wall. The frustrated king go to Elisha and told him, I have come to kill you, because all of this is your fault. The city is starving on the account of you. And then we come to Kings, the 7th chapter. I'm going to read verses 1 and 2. Then Elisha said, "Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, where? In the gates of Samaria." In other words, Elijah was saying, about this time tomorrow, there's going to be so much food in the city until it will nearly be free. And then after he said that, verse 2, then a Lord on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God and said, "Behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And then Elijah said to him, behold, thou shalt see it with thy eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. The king, standing there looking at Elijah, staring into the face, looking into his fiery, spirit-filled eyes. And this king turns around and leaves the prophet. Now, the same evening, about dusk dark, outside of the city walls are four main characters. The four leopards are making one of the hardest decisions that they have ever made. The text says, they said one to another, why sit we here until we die? They said, out of all of our options, every one is an option of despair. If we go into the city is filled with starvation, we're going to die. If we stay here where we are, we're going to die. Our best option is the third one, and that is to go and surrender to the Syrian army. If they spare our lives, we shall live. But if they kill us, we're going to die anyway of starvation. So we don't have much to lose by surrendering to the Syrian army. And this was the hard decision that they had to make. And this was the hard decision that God wanted them to make. Nevertheless, all that they had to guide them were the facts as they understood the facts and the option that those facts offered them. They did not have a direct word from God that says, go and surrender. God did not speak to them in that way. Sometimes this is the way that God deals with all of us in making some of life's hard decisions. In this case, again, let's consider the COVID-19. God has not given us chapter and verses that says it's safe to reopen your church now. Nevertheless, God has not left us alone. God has not left us to chance. Listen to me. The four leopards, they had come to a state of peace with the decision that they made to go and surrender. Now, God may not give us a direct word, but here's what God will do. God will give us peace. Did you hear what I said? I said God will give us peace. Philippians 4, 6, and 7, it says, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God. You hear what I said? The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall keep your heart and mind through Christ Jesus. And that's what I'm saying. When we wrestle with hard decisions, when we come to God's will for us, it is then that God will give us peace. It does not make the hard decision any easier to make. No, but God will give us peace in making that hard decision. There may not be a chapter and verse in the Bible, but we will have peace from God. And it could be that God is giving us peace and reopening our church and not giving another church peace in opening. And one reason may be is that because we do not have the testing to really know where the virus is, but God does. And the churches that God does not give peace, maybe it's God's will that they not open just now. That's just an example, but the point is, God will give us peace. And he gave these 4 lepers peace in making this hard decision. And we, as the lepers, we may not know how it's going to turn out. But however it turns out, we have peace with God. Isn't that wonderful? God will not leave us alone. He will give us peace. And they said, if we live, we live. But if we die, we die. We have peace. There they go. And headed to the Syrian army. But what they did not know when they came to peace in making this decision, God had already intervened. God caused the Syrian army to hear a loud noise. They heard the noise of chariots and horses and a great army. They said, no doubt, Israel has hired the Hittites and the Egyptians to fight against us. Really, when all they heard was one of God's angels were making noise like an army. And everyone fled. And when the 4 lepers arrived at the camp was abandoned. They left everything as it was. They left food. They left their clothes. They left their silver. They left their gold. Everything as it was. And this is what the 4 lepers, this is what they saw. And they went back and told the king of Israel that the camp had been abandoned and everything was left in it. And what about the man that Elijah said, you're going to see it with your eyes, but you won't get a chance to eat it? Well, the next day, the king told him, he said, I want you to keep the gates and regulate the crowd. The people were so anxious, so hungry for food until they stampeded the gates and they trampled the man to death. He saw it with his eyes, but as the man of God said, he did not get a chance to eat it. Now, the people were so desperate, he died in the stampede. So now we look back at this story, and we have to say, what a story. What a story about these 4 lepers who made this hard decision. They did not have a Bible chapter and verse that spoke directly to them, but nevertheless, God gave them peace in making the right decision. So that's what we have to remember. That's what we have to remember. Sometimes you cannot go to the Bible and find a word from God that speaks directly to your problem. Nevertheless, God will give you peace. He'll give you the peace to let you sleep at night. God will give you peace. Peace that you will not be afraid, though you do not know the outcome. Yet you are not afraid, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. God bless you.
So we're sinking in a world of sin, but grace and mercy, it took me in, took my feet out of the miry clay and placed them on a rock to stay. Oh, what a relief it was when God rescued me. Loosed the chains that I had me bound, and He set me free, and it felt like, I can't hear you, come on. Felt like cooling water from grandma's well. Baby brother sang sleepless nights with so much pain. Couldn't see no sunshine, nothing but rain. God said we've been made endure for a night, but in the morning you will